One night in 1977, a 29-year-old man sat alone on his bed in London. He had a PhD from Cambridge. He spoke 5 languages. By every external measure, he was exactly the kind of person who should have had his life together. But he had been living with near-constant anxiety and depression for years. The voice inside his head, the one that ran all day and all night, judging everything, fearing everything, narrating everything, had become completely unbearable. And that night it hit a breaking point. He thought, I cannot live with myself any longer. And then something stopped him. He noticed something strange about that sentence. I cannot live with myself. If I cannot live with myself, who is the I and who is the myself? Are those two different things? That question, that single accidental moment of self-inquiry, cracked something open. The mental noise stopped, not gradually, immediately. A silence he had never experienced replaced it. He described waking the next morning as if the world had been born again, as if he was seeing everything for the first time. A deep, inexplicable peace that had nothing to do with his circumstances. He spent the next several years trying to understand what had happened to him. He sat on park benches. He talked to almost nobody. He went from a promising academic career to what looked from the outside like total failure. And slowly, through his own experience and through years of reading Buddhist teachings, Zen masters, Christian mystics, and Hindu philosophy, he arrived at an answer. That answer became a book. That book was rejected by every major publisher it was submitted to. It eventually sold over 10 million copies in 33 languages. Oprah Winfrey called it one of the most important books she had ever read. And at the center of it is one idea, so simple it sounds almost insulting, until you actually try to live it. The present moment is the only moment that actually exists. And your inability to live in it fully, completely, right now, is the source of almost every form of suffering you experience. That is the entire book. Everything else is the explanation. Let's go. Welcome to Book Decoded. Today, we're breaking down The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle, one of the most widely read spiritual books of the last 30 years and one of the most practically useful books ever written about the human mind. I want to be clear about what this book is and what it is not. This is not a religion. It does not ask you to believe anything. It does not require you to adopt a spiritual framework, a meditation practice, or a particular worldview. What it does is point your attention at something you have direct access to right now in this moment. Something that most people spend their entire lives never noticing. And noticing it will change everything. 6 core ideas. No filler. Let's go.
Section 1. You are not your mind. The first idea is the foundation of everything else in this book, and it is going to feel strange the first time you hear it. You are not your mind. Let that land for a second. The voice in your head, the constant running stream of commentary that judges everything, plans everything, worries about everything, narrates everything, is not you. It is a tool, a useful one in the right circumstances, but for most people, the tool has taken over the user. Tolle calls this compulsive thinking, and here is how he identifies it. Right now, as you are watching this video, there is almost certainly a layer of mental commentary running alongside your experience. Thoughts about what you had for breakfast, thoughts about something someone said to you last week, thoughts about something you need to do tomorrow, thoughts about whether this video is worth your time, thoughts about your thoughts. You did not choose most of those thoughts. They arrived uninvited. They kept coming whether you wanted them or not. And if you tried to stop them, if you tried right now to simply not think for the next 60 seconds, you would fail. The thoughts would keep coming. That experience of being dragged along by mental content you did not choose and cannot turn off is what Tolle calls unconscious identification with the mind. You have become so completely merged with the thinking process that you believe the thoughts are you. You believe the voice is you. But here's the question that changes everything. You can observe your thoughts, can't you? You can notice a thought arising. You can watch its content. You can see it fade and be replaced by another one. If you have ever caught yourself thinking something and then thought, "Why am I even thinking about this?" you have experienced this.
You observed your own thought, which means there are two things happening, the thought and the one who noticed the thought. If you can observe your thoughts, who is doing the observing? That observer, that silent background awareness that watches thoughts come and go without being any particular thought, is what Tolle calls your true self, your consciousness, the deeper dimension of who you are that was there before the current thought and will be there after it passes. And here is what this means practically. Every moment of suffering you experience, every anxiety, every fear, every shame, every resentment, every depression, is arising in the thinking mind. It is created by thought. It is sustained by thought. It requires your continued unconscious identification with thought to survive. The moment you step back, even slightly, into the position of the observer, the suffering loses its grip. Not because the thoughts stop, but because you are no longer completely identified with them. You become the sky. The thoughts become clouds. The clouds may be dark and heavy, but the sky, the awareness behind the thinking, is never actually affected by any cloud that passes through it. This single shift from identifying as the thinker to recognizing yourself as the awareness behind the thinking is the central move of this entire book. Everything else builds on this. And the doorway into that shift is always in the same place. Right here, right now. Section 2. The Prison of Mental Time. Here is something almost nobody thinks about directly. The past does not exist right now. Read that again. The past, whatever happened yesterday, last year, in your childhood, does not exist anywhere right now except as a mental image inside your head. It is real in the sense that it happened, but it is not happening. The only place it exists right now is in your mind as a memory being replayed in the present moment. The future does not exist right now either. Everything you have ever worried about, planned for, dreaded, anticipated, every single one of those things exists only as a mental projection being generated in the present moment. The future is not a place, it is a thought. Now here is why this matters so much. All psychological suffering lives in mental time. Anxiety is the mind projecting forward into a future that has not arrived and may never arrive in the form imagined. When you feel anxious, you are not responding to something that is actually happening right now. You are responding to a mental movie your brain is generating about something that might happen later. Regret is the mind living inside a past that no longer exists. When you feel guilt or shame about something from your past, you are replaying right now, in the present, an event that is over. You are recreating it in your mind and then suffering the emotional consequences of that recreation as if it were happening again. Resentment is the same thing. Bitterness toward someone who hurt you years ago is not something you are experiencing because of what they did. You are experiencing it because you keep reconstructing the event in your mind right now, in the present, and reacting to your own reconstruction. Depression, Tolle argues, is often the cumulative weight of a mind that refuses to be present, that is chronically pulled backward into memory and regret, or forward into dread and anxiety, and never allowed to simply rest in the only moment that is actually real. Tolle is not saying the past and future are irrelevant. He is making a precise distinction. The past is useful for learning from. The future is useful for planning. Both of those activities can happen right now, in the present moment. You can sit down right now and constructively think about what you learned from a difficult experience, or make a plan for next week. That is using the past and future as tools. But the psychological habit of living in mental time, of spending the majority of your mental and emotional energy dwelling in what was, or dreading what might be, is not constructive. It is not preparation. It is not processing. It is suffering with no functional purpose. And it is happening to almost every person, almost continuously, without them realizing it. Here is the diagnostic Tolle offers. Ask yourself right now, in this moment, do I have a problem? Not tomorrow, not last week, not in general. Right now, in this specific moment, is there an actual problem demanding your attention? For most people, in most moments, the answer is no. The problem they are suffering from exists in their imagination of the future or their reconstruction of the past. The present moment itself, just this moment, is usually fine. That recognition, practiced consistently, can dissolve more suffering than almost any therapy, any strategy, or any life change. Because the problem is not usually what you think the problem is. The problem is that you are not here.
Section 03. How to actually access the now. This is the section where most spiritual books fail you. They tell you what the present moment is, they tell you why it matters, and then they leave you with some vague instruction to be present that means nothing in practice. Tolle does not do that. He gives you specific, immediate, physical entry points into the present moment that work even if you have never meditated a day in your life. Entry point 1. Your hands. Right now, without looking at your hands, can you feel them from the inside? Not the skin surface, not the temperature of the air on them, the inner aliveness, the subtle tingling, pulsing, almost electrical sensation of being in living tissue. Take 5 seconds and actually try it before continuing. That sensation, what Tolle calls the inner body, is the present moment made physical. It is impossible to feel your hands from the inside while simultaneously being lost in a mental argument from 3 years ago. The two cannot occupy the same attention at the same time. Body awareness and compulsive thinking are mutually exclusive. This is not a metaphor. This is a neurological fact. The attentional systems required for interoceptive body awareness and the default mode network responsible for mind-wandering and self-referential thought cannot both operate at full intensity simultaneously. Your hands are always in the present. The moment you put your attention inside them, you are in the present.
Entry point 2. The breath. The breath is perhaps the most ancient and most universally used anchor to the present moment across every major contemplative tradition on earth. And Tolle's instruction is simpler than almost any other teacher's. Don't control it,
Don't deepen it. Don't slow it. Just watch it. Feel the air move in through your nose. Feel the brief pause at the top. Feel the release. One breath, then the next. The breath is always and only happening now. You cannot breathe in the past or the future. Every conscious breath is an act of presence. Entry point 3. Listening without labeling. Right now, what do you hear? Not what you think about what you hear, not the story your mind tells about it. What do you actually, physically hear? Most people, when they listen, are simultaneously labeling, evaluating, and narrating everything they hear. That's traffic. That's annoying. That means I live too close to the highway. I should move. Moving is expensive. Speaking of expensive, I need to think about my finances. One sound triggered a 10-step mental chain in under 2 seconds. Toll invites something different. Listen to the sounds around you right now as if you have never heard anything before, without labels, without judgments, just sound. That quality of pure listening, without the overlay of mental commentary, is presence. It is the difference between experiencing the world and thinking about experiencing the world. Entry point 4. Watch the thinker. This is Toll's most distinctive and most powerful technique. Instead of trying to stop thinking, which almost never works and usually just produces more thinking, you simply step back and watch the thoughts as they arise. You become a scientist observing your own mind. A thought arrives, you notice it. You observe its content without becoming it, without arguing with it, without adding more thoughts about it. You let it pass. You are the sky. The thought is a cloud. You watch it move through and dissolve. In the gaps between thoughts, even tiny gaps, a fraction of a second, there is silence, spaciousness, a quiet alertness that is not made of any particular thought. That gap is the present moment. And here is what Toll promises and what every contemplative tradition on earth agrees with. With practice, the gaps. Have you ever been in a situation where your emotional reaction was dramatically out of proportion to what actually happened? Someone says something mildly critical, and you feel a wave of shame so intense it ruins your entire day. An argument that started about something small escalates into something that feels like it's about everything. A comment triggers a rage that takes hours to dissipate. Most people explain this as being sensitive, or having a bad day, or as something the other person did to them. Tolle has a different explanation, and it is one of the most original and practically useful ideas in this book. He calls it the pain body. Here is how he describes it. Every human being who has not done significant inner work is carrying an accumulated field of old emotional pain. Every moment of grief that was pushed down rather than felt, every anger that was swallowed, every fear that was buried, every wound that was numbed rather than healed. This pain does not disappear when it is suppressed. It accumulates. It solidifies. Over years and decades, it builds into what Tolle describes as a semi-autonomous energy field within you, with its own identity, its own patterns, and its own appetite. The pain body feeds on more pain. It needs negativity the way your physical body needs food. And it gets what it needs by hijacking your perception, taking over your thinking, and filtering everything you experience through its emotional lens, and by triggering reactive behavior that generates more painful situations. This is the mechanism behind almost every destructive pattern in human relationships. Why certain people keep attracting the same toxic relationships, why certain arguments keep happening in the same way with the same emotional intensity, why people who have been hurt badly enough sometimes seem to unconsciously recreate conditions that hurt them again.
It is not weakness. It is not a character flaw. It is the pain body feeding. The pain body is most powerful during activated states, when something triggers it. And when it is activated, it is extraordinarily difficult to think your way out. Logic does not work on it. Willpower does not work on it. Understanding it intellectually does not neutralize it. The only thing that dissolves the pain body is presence. Here is what that means in practice. The next time you feel a disproportionate emotional reaction, instead of immediately expressing it, suppressing it, or analyzing it, try something different. Feel it. Not think about it. Feel it. Where is it in your body? What does it actually feel like physically? Is it a tightness in the chest? A burning in the throat? A heaviness in the stomach? Bring your full attention into the physical sensation of the emotion without the story your mind wants to tell about it, without deciding who is to blame, without projecting it backward onto your history or forward into what it means about your future. Just the raw physical experience of the emotion held in conscious awareness. Something remarkable happens when you do this. The emotion does not escalate. It does not immediately vanish either, but it shifts, it moves, it begins to dissolve in the light of direct, compassionate attention. Because the pain body requires unconsciousness to operate. It needs you to be identified with it, to be lost inside the story, the reaction, the spiral, in order to maintain its grip. The moment you observe it clearly, the moment a part of you steps back and watches the emotion rather than becoming it, you have withdrawn the fuel it runs on. You cannot fight the pain body. That feeds it. You can only illuminate it. And presence is the only light that works.
Section 5. Acceptance is not weakness. The word acceptance has a problem in America. It sounds like giving up, like being passive, like deciding that whatever is wrong is okay and you are just going to let it stay wrong. Tolle understands this objection completely, and he draws a distinction that changes everything. Acceptance does not mean approval. It does not mean you think a situation is good. It does not mean you will not work to change it. It does not mean you are satisfied with how things are. It means one specific thing. You are not in psychological resistance to the fact that the current moment is what it is. Here is the principle underneath this. Whatever is happening right now is happening right now. That is not a philosophy. That is just a fact. The reality of this moment exists regardless of whether you resist it or accept it. Your resistance does not change what is. It only adds the experience of resistance on top of the experience of the situation. Think about being stuck in traffic. The traffic is there. You being furious about the traffic does not make the traffic move. What it does is add the experience of fury to the experience of being stuck. So now you are stuck and miserable, instead of just stuck. Tolle's framework for any difficult situation is clean and practical. Ask yourself honestly, can I do something about this right now, in this moment? If yes, do it. Take action. Don't spend a single second in psychological anguish about it. Just address it. If no, then the only sane response is acceptance. Not because the situation is good, not because you are giving up, but because resistance to an unchangeable present fact has a cost. It drains your energy, it clouds your thinking, it contracts your awareness, and that cost produces no benefit whatsoever.
Tolle goes further. He says, whatever the present moment contains, try accepting it as if you had chosen it. This is a radical practice. It does not mean pretending everything is wonderful. It means meeting what is with your full self, rather than half of yourself, the other half being consumed by arguing with reality.
And here is what becomes possible from that place of acceptance. Clarity, because the mental noise of resistance is no longer competing with your ability to perceive the situation accurately. Creativity, because you are not spending cognitive resources fighting what is. You can use those resources to figure out what to do. Energy, because resistance is exhausting. Acceptance is not passive. It is actually the most energetically efficient relationship with reality possible. And paradoxically, the clearest, most powerful action almost always comes not from urgency or resistance, but from a place of inner stillness. When you are not reacting from the contracted, anxious place of fighting what is, your actions are cleaner, more direct, more effective. The most capable leaders, the most skilled athletes, the most effective problem solvers consistently describe operating from a quality of calm, present awareness, not from panic or resistance. Flow states, being in the zone, operating from stillness. That is not an accident. That is what becomes available when you stop fighting the present moment. Everything we have talked about so far, the mind, mental time, the pain body, acceptance, comes to its most personal and most painful expression in relationships. And Toll is more honest about this than almost any other book on the topic. He starts with a question most people have never thought about directly. Why does falling in love feel so alive? The conventional answer is because of the other person, because of how wonderful they are, because of the chemistry, the connection, the compatibility. Toll's answer is different, and it is more useful. When you fall in love, when that initial rush of aliveness and joy floods through you, it is not primarily because of the other person. It is because their presence has temporarily suppressed your pain body and your compulsive thinking. They have, without either of you realizing it, given you a window into the present moment. Their novelty, their attention, their energy has pulled you out of your mental noise and into direct experience. You feel more alive. The world looks brighter. Colors are richer. Food tastes better. But here is what you are actually experiencing: the natural joy of presence, the peace and aliveness that is always available in the present moment, now temporarily accessible because your mental noise has been interrupted. This is why new love feels so much like presence, because it is. And this is also why it fades. After the initial phase, the pain bodies of both people activate. Old patterns emerge. The person who seemed to free you from your mind starts triggering it. The wounds you carried into the relationship begin showing up in the relationship. And here is where most relationships either begin their slow decline or begin their real deepening.
Because this is where genuine work becomes possible. Not the work of trying to fix the other person, not the work of managing the relationship from the outside, but the inner work of becoming present, actually genuinely present with another human being. Tolle says the most profound gift one person can offer another is presence, not advice, not solutions, not empathy performed from behind a wall of your own mental commentary. Actual presence, the experience of being fully received by someone who is truly here. When you listen to someone from presence, not waiting for your turn to speak, not internally defending against what they are saying, not comparing their experience to your own, something extraordinary happens. The other person feels it. You do not have to say anything. The quality of your attention communicates something that words cannot. And presence in relationship also means, increasingly, not projecting your pain body onto the other person, not punishing them for the crimes of people from your past,
not requiring them to repair wounds they did not create, not reacting to who they remind you of rather than who they actually are. None of this is possible by trying harder with your thinking mind. Trying harder with your thinking mind is the problem. It only becomes possible gradually, imperfectly, sometimes beautifully, through the practice of presence. Tolle closes with something he calls the deeper dimension, the substrate of pure awareness that underlies all thought, all emotion, all experience. The open, clear, silent consciousness within which everything else appears and disappears. He does not ask you to believe in it. He asks you to look for yourself, in the gaps between thoughts, in moments of genuine stillness, in the quiet that lies beneath every experience you have ever had. That awareness, that open, clear space of simply being is, Tolle suggests, what you most fundamentally are, not the content that appears within it, not the thoughts, the emotions, the stories, the identity, the space itself, the awareness itself, the now itself. Let me bring all of this into something you can actually use starting today. The next time you feel anxious, pause. Ask one question: is there actually a problem right now in this moment? Not tomorrow, not in general, right now. Almost always the answer will be no. The anxiety is about a future event that exists only in your mind. That recognition, practiced again and again, can dissolve anxiety that no amount of analysis or reassurance has been able to touch. The next time you feel resentment or bitterness towards someone, notice that the event you are angry about is over. It exists right now only because you are reconstructing it in your mind in the present. You are not obligated to keep rebuilding it. You can put it down. Not because they deserve forgiveness, because you deserve the energy you have been spending on keeping the pain alive. The next time you are in a conversation and you notice yourself thinking about what you are going to say instead of actually listening, catch it. Come back. Feel your feet on the floor. Take one breath and actually hear the person in front of you. The next time an emotion surges through you that feels out of proportion, instead of expressing it reactively or suppressing it completely, try a third option. Feel it physically in your body with conscious attention. Stay with the raw sensation without the story. Watch what happens. The next time you are somewhere beautiful, outside, with someone you love, in a moment you know you will want to remember, choose to be there, not to document it, not to think about how you will describe it later. There, now, fully. Because this is the thing that the power of now ultimately asks of you. Not a new belief system, not a new strategy, not a new identity or morning routine or productivity framework. Just this. Be here. That is the whole teaching. Arrive in the only moment that exists, again and again, without judgment when you forget, without ceremony when you remember. Because your life, your actual life, not the one you are planning or remembering or worrying about, is happening right now, in this moment, the only one that has ever existed. And every moment you spend somewhere else is a moment of your life you did not actually live. Eckhart Tolle sat on park benches for 2 years after his awakening. He had no career, no plan, no strategy for what came next. He had only what he had found, a stillness so complete and so unlike anything he had ever experienced that he had no interest in anything else. He did not set out to write a bestseller. He set out to describe as clearly as he could what he had discovered. And what he discovered is available to you. Not someday, after enough meditation retreats, or enough suffering, or enough self-improvement. Now, right now, in the gap between this sentence and the next thought your mind generates. The Power of Now, Eckhart Tolle, one of the most important books you will ever read. If this breakdown reached something in you, subscribe to Book Decoded. We break down the books that actually change how you live, not just how you think about living. New breakdown every week. See you in the next one.